Final Four in college football was set, and one team that didn't make the big dance was Ohio State. We'll go over the committee's decision to leave the Buckeyes out of the championship race as we go one-on-one with Kevin Noon, publisher of BuckeyeGrove.com for Rivals on the OFN Meeting Room with Greg DePalma. All right, it's December 8th, 2017. I'm Greg DePalma. Thanks for tuning into the OFN Meeting Room as we talk college football with Kevin Noon. And Kevin, I know we were trying to get you on the program for most of the week. You've been a little bit under the weather, but we finally were able to hook up with you and talk about the disappointment of what took place last Sunday for Ohio State fans. So how was the day in general, not just for you, but of course for the fans?
Yeah, I was going to say, for me, I was sick with a cold, so that was kind of where I was at. But the fans were definitely very disappointed. They looked at the Alabama resume versus the Ohio State resume. Ohio State had 3 wins, better than anything that Alabama had on its record, and the disappointment was real because they thought that they'd done enough, even with kind of a close game in the Big Ten championship game, that that they should have gotten the nod. But it's nothing you can do about it now. Don't lose a game by 31 points to a mediocre Iowa team.
Yeah, I mean, and you really think that was it, though? I mean, period, end of story, that or do you think that if Ohio State had won the game even more convincingly against Wisconsin, that they might have had a better shot?
Well, I don't know how big of a score they would have needed to win. Would it have been like 59-0 in 2014? I don't know. I mean, it's going to take a lot to erase that 31-point loss to Iowa. I mean, I think they could have still lost the game to Iowa, but if they would have lost by 10, it may have been a little bit easier to explain away. But, in a game where they just, were thoroughly manhandled by a team that finished the season 7-5, that just wasn't going to carry a lot of weight for them. And I don't know if they would have had to beat Wisconsin by 28, 31, 35.
Yeah.
I mean, they would have had to have really exerted a lot of game control to maybe try and sway the committee a little. And of course, there's the conspiracy theory that the committee had pretty much made up its mind and it was going to take an Armageddon situation for Ohio State to get in.
Yeah, and look, there's been a lot, especially the last couple of years now. I think a lot of people are confused, and I think this is just going to continue until there is maybe 8 or 16 teams, and I'm sure there'll still be a little bit of a debate who the 9th or 17th team is. It's a little bit harder to take, though, with only 4. But I think part of the reason is because it is subjective and you're just getting opinions every year. And it seems that they're just fitting in their criteria of who they pick based on just who they like. And it's their opinion. I mean, there's no, and again, it's not like I think they made a completely bad decision. It's just that it's kind of hard to take sometimes, of course, for the losing side, because you don't know. It's like the lottery. You sit there. It's like the lottery balls in basketball, to see if you're going to get the first pick in the draft. You just sit there and you just have no idea what's going to happen.
Well, there's no consistency on what the criteria is. Is it the eye test? Is it the resume? I mean, it varies from committee to committee, and it just seems that there's no real standard there. And I think that's the biggest issue that everybody's having with it, at least if you're an Ohio State fan, is, last year it seemed to be much more about the resume, and this year it seemed to be more about the eye test, and, next year, who knows what it's going to be about. So, I don't hear a lot of people around Columbus, advocating making it an 18 playoff or blowing it up and starting over, but I do hear a lot of people saying we need to have some more concrete standards of what is going into the selection there, because right now it just seems to be very haphazard.
Yeah, I think at least, I mean, maybe if they look, I think everybody, I don't think it's crazy to imagine that in 5 or 6 years we'll have 8 teams, and maybe if there's still 5 or, let's say there's still 5 power conferences, they could just decide, okay, whoever wins the conferences, those are the 5, and then we'll go ahead and pick 3 at large. At least the teams that win the conference championships will know that they're in. But again, that's years from now. We may not even be alive by then. So what about Ohio State and this team? Because the team in general, though, again, you have to agree that not just the Iowa game, but dating back to last season's loss to Clemson, and then of course the Iowa loss and some of the other games this year, including the Big Ten championship game, wasn't a very great performance. So what was it about this team? What did they do wrong themselves with all the talent that they had? They were so young last year. Everybody thought senior quarterback, they're going to be even better this year, but they weren't better. Why? What was wrong with this group?
Well, the thing is they were just inconsistent. They're the only team in FBS that has 3,000 rushing yards and 3,000 passing yards. I mean, the offense averaged 42 and a half points a game. I mean, when they were on, they were on. And yeah, sure, you can sit there and say, well, getting fat on Rutgers and Maryland and teams like that. I mean, but you can go to any conference and find bottom dwellers to get fat on.
Sure.
I mean, that's just the nature of conference play. It's not an issue, I think, with the scheme or with the personnel or anything. It's just a matter of consistency. And let's face it, we can go to week 2 in the game against Oklahoma, and Oklahoma just beat them. I mean, that's just what it came down to. It wasn't that Ohio State maybe stunted themselves a little bit getting away from the running back run, relying too much on the read option, but that's just kind of their DNA of what they go into, especially in crunch time. And, I think it's something that they need to kind of do a re-examination of where they go in those certain moments. But the Iowa game was none of that. I mean, the Iowa game was just Iowa schemed them to death, and Kirk Ferentz and his staff did a great job of finding some things that they weren't prepared for or just ill prepared to play against. And I think it really showed a weakness maybe in the linebacker position this year, where they miss a Raekwon McMillan, who ended up being an early round draft pick for the Miami Dolphins, was going to start before a fluky ACL injury during a special teams play. But maybe the missing a player here or there in certain positions may have led to some of the consistency issues. But I have a hard time looking at what they did as an entire body of work and saying that the season was a failure.
Yeah, because the defensive line, especially depending on if all these guys leave. I mean, is this the best depth defensive line as far as talent and pro prospects that the Buckeyes have since you've been watching them?
I would be hard pressed to find a better one. I mean, just in terms of depth, I mean, I've seen some tremendous players come through the years, and I'm old as dirt, so I've seen a lot of games through these eyes. But with that being said, it's hard to sit there and say, that I've seen 4 defensive ends being able to rotate in the way that these guys have. To see a player like Draymond Jones on the inside, to see some of this other depth that they have there. I don't know if I can really remember seeing a line like this, not only at Ohio State, but really anywhere.
Okay, now why? I know the fans probably don't want to hear about it just yet. There's still going to be, they have at least a bowl game to get over. Maybe a win there will make things a little bit better. But what about the future next year? How can this team be better next year?
Well, I think that they're going to be returning a lot of key parts. I mean, we could sit there and kind of go through some of the losses. I mean, they're going to be losing a Remington Award winner at center and Billy Price. They're going to be losing their left tackle. I mean, they're going to be losing a quarterback who was a multiple-time Big Ten, all Big Ten quarterback. But they're going to return with J.K. Dobbins. We believe that Mike Weber is going to come back, so they're going to have a 1-2 punch there. I mean, we've seen some glimpses of what Dwayne Haskins is capable of doing. They're going to return most of their offensive weapons there, and then on the defensive side of the ball, yeah, there will be a little bit of a struggle on the line in terms of you're not going to have Tyquan Lewis, you're not going to have Jalen Holmes, you probably are not going to have Sam Hubbard, who should probably come out after this year, but you're still going to have Nick Bosa, you're still going to have Chase Young, who is a talented true freshman this year. I think he's going to step up. You're going to lose Denzel Ward likely to the draft. I mean, he should probably be a first-round type of guy. But, I still think that the schedule lines up very nicely for them, and I think that they have enough talent that they're going to be able to compete for the Big Ten, and I would say that they're probably going to be favorites of the Big Ten again.
Do they have a really marquee non-conference game next season?
Week 3, they're going to play TCU at Jerry World.
Okay, that'll work. That's especially TCU's getting better every year again. What about the bowl game? USC, do you think this team, because we never know about the bowl games, you don't know about these teams, every program's different, the way they're going to come to these games and whether or not they're going to be ready psychologically to play. What do you think right now? Maybe in a few weeks you could change your mind, seeing how these guys react, but just right now, what's your gut tell you how they're going to come out and play against what should be an entertaining game? I'm looking forward to seeing Ohio State and USC play.
I think they're going to come out. I liken this back to a couple years ago where they ended up going to the Fiesta Bowl to play Notre Dame, and they thoroughly dominated the Fighting Irish. I think that, and I'm not predicting that as being the outcome. I'm just saying that I think Ohio State's going to come in motivated. This team plays with that small unit cohesion type of mentality where they're playing for the guy next to them. I don't expect to see anybody sitting out to protect their draft status or anything like that. I think that they're going to come in and, they're going to give it their best shot against a USC team. They haven't beaten USC since the mid-'70s.
Wow, okay.
So USC's got a 7-game win streak against them. So, there's definitely something there, in this storied rivalry, which I believe USC's up 13-9-1. And with Ohio State dropping 7 in a row, that's telling.
Well, and look, Sam Darnold's going to be out there. I'm sure the speculation, who knows, maybe we'll know by then whether or not he's going to come out. Chances are, if he is going to come out, he might wait until after the game is over. But either way, I think people are going to be pretty excited about that. Look, it's not the Rose Bowl, but there's nothing wrong with the Cotton Bowl. We look forward, though, to at least getting an opportunity to talk to you again in a few weeks, maybe before the game, see how things are going as far as what we just talked about. It's gonna be a few weeks. A lot of stuff can happen. And thanks a lot for taking your time to talk to us today, Kevin. And we look forward to talking to you again in a couple of weeks, and definitely all the way through at least this season and in the off season through the NFL draft.
Absolutely. I plan on taking my vitamins. I'll be healthy. The next time that we talk, my voice won't sound so horrible.
It sounds just fine. Thanks, Kevin.
Anytime.
Okay. You got it. All right. So Kevin Noon for Buckeyes Nation, and again, BuckeyeGrove.com. Want to thank him for joining us here. He's got a very busy schedule with that voice issue, which I thought he was fine. But hey, you know what? It's a tough time to be an Ohio State fan. I know how it feels being a Michigan fan. So anyway, that'll do it here for the OFN Meeting Room on the Our Lads Football Radio Network, where it's never too early to think about the NFL Draft. We'll see you again. By the way, we are going to go with Army. We're going with Army to beat Navy. So we'll see what happens there. See if they can make it 2 in a row. And we'll be talking to you next week. We got a few other shows, including a week from today, when we preview the college football bowl season here on the Our Lads Football Radio Network. So thanks to Kevin Noon and Greg DePalma. We'll see you next time on the OFN Meeting Room.